How many times do we make decisions based on faulty assumptions or based on old information? How many times do we do that where we do not consider new data? We don't consider maybe new research. And of course, with these examples, these are really simple. But if you're making a decision that can impact your business, that can impact your life, that could impact your health, the information that you have or know may not be the most recent. Hey everybody, welcome to Finding the Upside. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy you chose to take some time and hang out with me. So today on Finding the Upside, I have a really interesting and intriguing topic to get into with you. And it's something that I wanted to present because it's something that we've been talking about in my own circle of friends and colleagues, and I have some stories to share to illustrate this point. How we make decisions, and if we're making decisions based on faulty assumptions or old information. The point here is that if you think about the way we make decisions or how we land on a position, a lot of us might be holding on to old information and repelling new information or data that comes our way, which could lead us to make a bad decision and could lead us, because of a faulty assumption or misinformation, actually make a bad choice. So I'm going to tell you two stories to illustrate this point. And the way this came up was I was talking to my friend Courtney, and she shared with me her story of how she came to understand this. And I'll get into that in a minute. But first, I wanted to draw back the curtain and share with you my own story of this very thing to illustrate this point. So let me take you back to when my son was in high school. My son was a football player, and as an active member of the Football Booster Club, I was a board member. I also headed up tons of committees and activities and led one of them, the team meals, which basically meant that every Friday afternoon before the Friday night game, we would feed the team. Before they had their meetings, they would do their strategy, they would get dressed, and they would make their way out to the field hours later to start and play the game. So my job was to place the order. We had somebody that provided food, and we would have volunteers, other mothers that would come. We would set everything up. We would serve them buffet style in the cafeteria. And one of the things that I would do, in addition to meeting my other volunteers there, the other mothers that helped me, I would gather all the supplies, whether that means the drinks, the plates, all of the things that I would have in my garage, and I would load them in and out of my car. But on my way over to the school, somebody else handled picking up the food and bringing it there. One of the things that the coaches always wanted was the team to have bananas and clementines, those little mandarin oranges, during halftime. And the bananas for cramps, because potassium helps to alleviate cramps that athletes can get, and also the clementines for energy and what have you. So every Friday on my way over to the school, there was a supermarket across the street from my house. On my way over, I would stop and get the same thing every week: 2 big bunches of bananas and 2 big bags of clementines. And it usually was about $23. Well, we had a Whole Foods just recently open in our town, and it was right across from the high school. And you, I'm sure, have heard back in the last 5 to 10 years, people have said, oh, Whole Foods, whole paycheck, that Whole Foods was so expensive. And so my assertion was that I wasn't going to buy that stuff over there because it was more expensive. And although from time to time I would shop at that store for my own family, it wasn't my choice because of that assumption and because of that belief that it was more expensive. So I head over to the school, and for some reason that day I forgot to stop at the typical standard supermarket across the street from my house that I would always get the bananas and clementines. And when I got to the school, I was like, oh shoot, I forgot to get the bananas and oranges, or bananas and clementines. So I said, oh, I'll just run across the street to Whole Foods for this week. So I set everything up. I told the other moms that I'd be right back. I went across the street and I bought two big bunches of bananas and two big bags of clementines. And as I got to the register, the cashier said, "That'll be $13." And I was like, "What? Is there a special sale? Are these on sale?" She's like, "No, it's regular price." And I thought right at that moment, wow, I had assumed that Whole Foods was more expensive, and it actually was nearly half the price of what I was buying every week. And in that moment, it made me realize not only that maybe I should be shopping at Whole Foods for fruits and vegetables, because they actually do have very competitive prices on those things. Maybe not everything, but those things they do. And that the assumption that the neighborhood supermarket across the street from my house was the best option was based on incomplete information and a faulty assumption that Whole Foods is expensive. So, let me bring you to my friend Courtney, who shared with me her story to illustrate this point even further. She had been taking a trip, leaving from Nashville on a business trip, to head down to Hilton Head. And on the way, they wanted to make a stop. The route that she had taken was one she had taken many times, and it took her through Georgia. And she had always gone through Atlanta in order to get to Hilton Head. Now, there's lots of choices, I'm sure, about the roads that you can take from Nashville to Hilton Head. And some involve back roads, some involve multiple highways, and some involve actually going right through the center of Atlanta. And as she was checking out of the hotel, just for interest, she asked or answered the question of the hotel staff member at the front desk, who said, "Oh, where you headed off to? You headed home?" And she shared where she was going. And he said, "Don't go through Atlanta. Do not go through Atlanta. You will end up in tons of traffic." So she said, "Well, I've taken this trip many times, and that's never been my experience," forgetting that it had been more than 8 years since she did that. There's all kinds of changes that she didn't even think about. She took the way she normally would go, and it ended up taking her 8 hours, when normally it would have taken about 4.5. Now, if I'm misquoting the times, you get the idea. It took her much longer because she made a decision based on old information. And it was faulty. In this case, it wasn't an assumption, but in some cases you could argue it was an assumption because she assumed that guy didn't know what he was talking about, that she knew better. So my point here is, how many times do we make decisions based on faulty assumptions or based on old information? How many times do we do that where we do not consider new data? We don't consider maybe new research. And of course, with these examples, these are really simple. But if you're making a decision that can impact your business, that can impact your life, that could impact your health, the information that you have or know may not be the most recent. Your experience and past history, although shouldn't be thrown out, you shouldn't just base your decisions on that. You've got to check if that information is the most recent, if that data you have is accurate, or has it changed? Let's face it, things change. So our thinking and our beliefs have to change based on new information. Otherwise, we can be wrong. But here's the thing. We have to be open to entertaining new information and new data. If we close the store and say, "I know enough to make this decision," even though our information could be outdated from 10 years ago, from our experience 8, 10, 20 years ago, from data and research that was done a long time ago, if we don't challenge our beliefs and assumptions, it can have truly devastating consequences. If it's a business decision, if it's a decision about your life, and if it's a decision about your health. Or you could just simply spend more money on clementines and bananas than you have to, or spend a lot of time stuck in traffic that you didn't have to. So I challenge you to think about this topic and think about how you make decisions. Are you open to new information? Do you challenge your beliefs? Are you basing your decisions on faulty assumptions or outdated information or data? I think all of us could benefit from just challenging ourselves to ensure that our information that we're making decisions on and we're landing on positions or beliefs is accurate and complete and based on the most recent information that we can validate. So I hope you've joined this episode. I hope that I've made you think, and I can't wait to have you with me for the next episode of Finding the Upside. Bye for now, friends.